Welcome back to the Sermon of Bacchus. Leonardo da Vinci painted the painting on the churchofbacchus.org website. And Michelangelo sculpted the sculpture that you see on the same page. So Michelangelo, Leonardo, you have people going back to Cicero, you have people going back to Aristotle, Plato, Augustus. All of them talked about the mysteries, the Bacchanalia, the Dionysian mysteries, the mysteries of Eleusis. So why did they all talk about this? Why did they all talk about it, allowing them to see into the future, into eternity? The future being forever, not the future in this lifetime, but the future after death. Why did they talk about their experience with this? If this is just a silly thing from the past. If you see time as a line similar to the Dr. Manhattan idea, where it's just the line and it's all happening. It's just the line is happening. It's not that it's happening in an order, it's that the whole thing is happening. Then you won't take so seriously your point in the line, and you can take all points in the line seriously. And it goes to the pursuit of a meaning for all people, for all time. And they did it by building massive pyramids or incredible Parthenons, or now we build huge buildings. We do amazing technologies. Technologies change, but the mind doesn't. The human remains the same. A cat, I have a cat, and the cat is the same as the cats in Egypt. Maybe different breed, but I bet you those cats were pretty normal looking cats, and probably they did cat stuff that we know cats do today. Humans are the same. Technology is different. The humans are the same. Oh, but they had slaves, and we have slaves today. We have several countries enslaved by dictators, where even if you unseated them from power, what would you do with the millions of people who are the victims? You would immediately destroy the neighboring countries. And so the solutions are never easy, they're never obvious, they're never really possible, because a solution leads to one more problem. And so then you have to always face the situation of despair and hope and meaning, importance. And so that brings me to the sermon today. This is about that one thing that could matter in this universe, in your existence, no matter what the truth is about determinism, or the truth about free will, the truth about a God that is like a genie, or a God that's an octopus, or maybe there are gods based on the creature that's praying, and it makes sense that humans would make it in the image of a human, and that a cephalopod would do the same for their species. So when we talk about the gods and we talk about the creation of religion by people as a sort of extended phenotype, like the beaver in the dam, we all know where these arguments come from. We know who has which ideas. I'm not claiming any originality. Don't mistake what I'm doing here as some kind of claim of insight. This is not insight. I've listened to enough people around the world on the internet and read enough people to know that there's always another thing that you haven't thought of. There's always a thing that you didn't know about. There's always something else. So I don't want to play those games of who said what when. Let's not. I'm not going to do that. You can do that. But when it comes to your awareness of yourself, you would think that this is a sort of common thing, but it's not. The awareness of the self goes from almost nothing in most animals, and then certain animals gain awareness. We have more awareness, but then there are humans with more awareness. And so when the person is born, everything that happens to them will determine their understanding of themselves. I was ignorant growing up till I was about 23. I could tell. I didn't understand anything. I could feel my ignorance. And there was nothing I could do about it. We didn't have the internet. And I didn't have anybody around that was able to explain things the way that the internet has, with geniuses at every corner. The internet is the best representation of everything. We find, there's this idea that why would you listen to the guy in the corner play the saxophone when you can listen to the best saxophone player in the world? And so then that's true for every possible profession, every possible area of knowledge and skill. And so we have to accept that we cannot compete in that way. Because if you're competing to be the best, you're now competing with several million people, 100 million people. So these competitions have lost meaning to me. But when you have all of these factors affecting your awareness, including your own ability to kind of climb through those stairs of becoming aware of the things that you think you want, of the things that you think are important to you, or that maybe they are important to you. You don't think it. They are. Actually, you think it and you're right that they're important to you. But desires can be placed in a person as they grow up, or there's some idea tricks them. A lot of the time you'll see people looking around, making sure that the thing they're saying is not wrong, because they don't want to spend, they probably had some point in their life, you could say the Santa Claus thing is the easiest one to imagine, where a person believes when they're little that this thing is real, and that they wanted that thing to happen every year. And they wanted a thing to happen based on an idea that was put in their head. And they wanted a magic creature to give them presents. And so that desire was placed in there through an idea that was placed in there. And then you can overcome that over time. But the people who have gone through anything like that in any area of their life, even if they thought that somebody was a certain way, and then they had no idea what the person really was. They had all these ideas of what they put onto the person, and then they realized, wow, I spent years believing something that wasn't right. So you have a lot of people who have been burned by that, and then they're always looking to save the time of their own ignorance, to free themselves from the prison of ignorance, which can lock you up for years in a place where you don't want to be, where you're like, I know this thing and I'm going to make this important. This is important. And then you later on go, this is not important. What was I doing? So the internet gives us a lot of ability to check up on our own ignorance. And so that does help with awareness, or it can. But then you have a million ideas going into millions of heads, brains, souls. These ideas will create new desires in all of these people. A lot of the things they look at are based on who they're surrounded by. A lot of things that they would be better off seeing are not ever going to be seen by their eyes or heard by their ears. And so that's what I mean by the deterministic path. There's certain things on your path that you'll be encountering, and then there's millions of things you won't encounter, and millions of ideas that you'll never consider. And then there's many that you'll be against that maybe you will change. So this is a process of self-awareness and ignorance. But the awareness that we have of all of these things that I just mentioned, it can't be affected even if you were to be a time traveler, even if you had God powers. There's always a thing behind that. There's always new things that emerge behind the mystery. And so the mysteries that they were talking about back then that were so important to them that they thought it talked about eternal life. They thought that the experience spoke to them specifically about what is going on in this universe. What is this experience we're having? And it was so important to them. And they talked about these mysteries. They wrote about them. They were open about it. And this was before the Christian religion. It was after, who knows, there's so many religions in history. And they talk about Osiris to Dionysus, and they make links. Who knows? But if you don't know any of these things because you can't know, right? If you keep going around in a circle and finding new circles to go in circles in, then what do you do? What do you do in that world where I don't even know if I'm rolling the dice, or if a God is rolling the dice, or if randomness from a whatever is rolling the dice? I don't know if I'm connecting to some power, or if I'm imagining something, or I'm hoping that I'll connect one day. In my case, I'm looking for these mysteries to be reborn through this new religion, through the resurrection of this very old religion. I'm looking to build up the congregation. I want to build the spirit and the faith back up. Not just letting people watch movies and change their consciousness, but taking that to its origin place, where Dionysus was supposedly going around spreading the word about wine and how to make wine around the world. How the theater was always a tribute to Dionysus. And when you go out into nature, you're paying tribute to Dionysus. Bacchus later on. The name changes. The languages change because they spoke Greek. They spoke Italian. I speak English, derived from Latin and Greek. These are words, but all the words as they change are referring to the thing that doesn't change. The thing that we're all experiencing that doesn't change. And so I want us to experience that thing on the timeline that they're experiencing right now. And I want us to experience it right now too. On the same line. We are the same as them. We are just as bad, just as good, just as smart, just as dumb. We're constantly making mistakes. And so what do you do? This is the point. What do you do? The point is multi-layered. But the main focus of how do you navigate these things? Bravery. So how can you be brave if you're predetermined? How can you be brave if someone's rolling the dice for you? Well, if you have any connection at all to anything and you have any control at all over anything, it could be bravery. Bravery to face an indifferent, meaningless, or meaningful world, to have Let's go both scenarios. A person who sees absolute meaning and purpose, and they love this world. They can't get enough of it, and they believe in achievement and success and everything that people care about. A good number of people care about for their survival and also for their pleasure and to enjoy this time while they're here. That's usually a lot of people are aiming for that, and makes sense. But in that scenario, bravery. What do you do when you mess up on your path? You have the bravery to face your mistake, to face the bad feelings, which bad feelings are literally the worst thing this universe can do to you. Bad feelings physically, through pain. Bad feelings emotionally, through thought or experience. So when you're brave, you're willing to take on these things, even though you don't have a good reason to. Your good reason may be made up in your head. It may be one of those ignorance things, but that's the thing that's motivating you at this point in your life. And then later on, maybe it's another thing you're looking for. And now you're brave to go for that thing. Because once you realize that these things don't actually have a lot of truth in them, that you'll see, I was wrong. I was mistaken again and again and again. It's bravery to keep going when you're messing up all the time. It's bravery when you can't give up, because your bravery is making you go forward without any guarantees. And of course, people have created the ideas of guarantees of afterlife and rewards after death and karma. And these are things that would make someone be brave right up until the end, but not for the sake of bravery, for the sake of a reward. And what I'm saying is that meaningful life that is pursued needs bravery. Bravery to face, even when you're feeling lazy, that's actually cowardice, because laziness is sort of a, this is bullshit. I'm just gonna chill because this is all bullshit. And it might only last 10 minutes. It may last a few days, but that's cowardice. That's not bravery. And then let's take the person who thinks this is all bullshit, nihilistic crap, meaningless. And they know that they don't have the answers. They hear all the people's answers and they're like, this is all crap. Your answers are crap. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Your religion's garbage. Your non-belief, whatever, your spirituality, all of you don't know what you're doing. And I don't know what I'm doing. And this is all nonsense. I didn't ask to be here, blah, 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 blah. Like, I was put here and now I'm forced to do this thing. And nobody wants to be forced to do anything. But that's the first thing that happens to us in this world. So everybody, unless you have this feeling that you don't mind being forced to do things, and I've encountered, just 90% of people aren't into that, but that's life. That's literally the first thing and last thing that ever happens to you. You're forced into this situation. You might have ideas that this is fine and this is great, right? That's those people, but these people are like, no, this is not great. I don't want this. And I want to set up this life so it's the least annoying possible, because I'm already being forced to do this. So let me do this in a certain way. Now, in those situations, it takes much more bravery to pursue anything when you don't have any belief in this crap. And so now bravery is even more important, because it's way more simple and way more cowardly to not pursue anything and say, fuck you, world. Fuck you. I'm not doing nothing. I'm just going to sit around and try to avoid the pain of this place. And I'm going to, maybe try to help some people out to make yourself feel less pain, because it pains you to see other people suffer. So that's self-interest. That's not altruism. You're not a good person. You don't want this place to even exist. So in both scenarios, bravery is really our only choice, right? Bravery to go straight through into the task that we're interested in doing, pursuing whatever it is, but pursuing it not putting it off, because there's bravery to do these things while we're here with no explanation from anybody. I would still like for a God to appear, any God to appear in right now in this video and say, actually, there's all sorts of stuff that matters, and I'm going to prove it to you. We would love that, I'm sure. But since that's unlikely, it's more, the reality is you have people saying what the gods are saying. And so, you know, take your best guess of which people are right, and, or whatever feelings are right about in your mind, whatever, take your guess, roll the dice. But you have to be brave, whichever one you choose, if you're going to pursue any of those. It's brave to pursue those. It's also brave to know ahead of time that I don't want to pursue any of that. I'm ending. If you're on this camp and you're like, this world's no good, and I'm out of here, that's brave. Suicide is brave. Sad, but brave. Because they're not going to go in the middle. In the middle is where the cowards live. And we're all cowards at different moments. And so to be brave is not to always be brave. It's to be aware that that's what you're trying to do. And then to always notice when it's not happening, when you're not being brave, when you're allowing the despair, or when you're allowing your failures. If remember, there are very different views of what it is that's happening. So when you're going to talk about everybody, you can't just talk about the people who have meaning in their life. You can't just talk about the people pursuing meaning. You have to talk about the people who have no meaning, and they live like that. And they have to live bravely, and they all have to live bravely if they want anything to matter. If they want anything out of this world, that's the only choice. Because sitting on the fence, in between doing it and not believing that this could matter, and so I'm not going to do anything. When you're in between, this is purgatory. You need, bravery is our answer. Bravery all the time, every minute of the day, every second of your thoughts, to never give in to that terror of knowing that you're really not, possessing the answers, and that you may be doing all of this for the wrong reasons without your knowledge. That's brave, to keep going, knowing that, oh my God, I could be wasting years of my life. So important, right? Those years. Well, not if you think it's all meaningless anyway. So we have a lot of contradictions, right? We're not rational, but we're capable of being rational. We're not brave, but we're capable of being brave. And so that is the answer to this determinism question. Because even if we're forced along like puppets, we can be brave puppets. A puppet that cuts his strings, or the puppet that goes along with the strings and is brave throughout his puppet experience, or her puppet experience. Would you say that animals are brave, the way they're always going for it, building that nest, attacking that creature, foraging, whatever the animal is doing? You ever seen an animal not be brave? Even when they're running away, it's kind of brave, the way they pursue their life, their survival. And so by becoming self-aware, humans, by escaping the animal, consciousness and becoming this different consciousness, we sort of lost the guaranteed bravery that's built into the animal kingdom. And now we have a choice. Do we be brave, or do we not be brave? Now we get to choose. That's the closest thing to free will there could ever be. When you consider all of there are these genius people who get into the nitty gritty of A and B, and if this, that, don't do. Whoa, no. I get it. We can't know. But I'm not one of those. I'm just a Bacchian. Birdy's my name, and I thank you for joining the sermon once again. And I'll see you at the next sermon.